Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. It is Monday, January the 10th, and we're here for a little bit of a lunch and learn, talk about some military transition issues. And joining us here at ClearedJobs.Net is a couple of recruiters from the government contracting organization PAE. We got Abel Arocha and we've got Steve Valentine. So they're going to be joining us, and we're going to talk about a few different things that are specific to the issues dealing with veterans as they transition out of the service into the private sector and into the government contracting spaces, especially. So my name is Bob Wheeler. I'm a ClearedJobs.Net rep. I'm one of our veteran outreach people, as well as being a sales rep. I've been here for a little bit over 7 years, and I have 20 years of Navy experience. The last 3 of those years were recruiting doctors up in Baltimore, but now I've been with ClearedJobs.Net since 2014. So we're going to start off by letting our guests introduce themselves. Let's go ahead and start with, we'll go alphabetically there. Let Abel kick it off first. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Abel, and what you're up to.
Good morning, Abel Arocha, prior CB, 20 years. Retired out of Camp David, originally from San Antonio, Texas. Once I retired, I started up with the Department of State, did State Department over about 5 years overseas. Resigned, came and thought I'd help out some veterans and get some jobs. So here I am working with PAE as a recruiter, and it's so far so good.
All right, Steve, what about yourself? You're an Air Force guy. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I joined up in 1989, came in as an aircraft armament systems specialist, did that for about 12 years, then jumped right into recruiting, became a career recruiter, liked it so much. I got out and continued that. Now I've been recruiting everything from doctors, nurses, anesthesiologists, government employees, and contractors for the last about 7 years now. And actually worked for Department of Labor for a while too. In between all that. So working with barriers, working with veterans with barriers to employment. So that's doing right now. PAE has been home for the last since May. So.
All right. Well, one of the things that we like to do here at ClearedJobs.Net when we have these lunch and learn things is we don't like to just always ask the same questions. The kind of, it's great stock answers about resumes and things like that. That's important stuff. But whenever we've got things that are unique to the guests, we like to bring that stuff out there. And one of the things that I thought was pretty cool was both you, Steve, as well as yourself, Abel, had some experience as a military recruiter. Steve, you were a career recruiter. Abel, you did some time as an enlisted recruiter, like a tour, basically.
Basically.
And I think it's pretty interesting because when we talk about stuff with veterans, it's the way we deal with recruiters is different. So there's two things I want to ask you guys. First, I want to get your take on the difference between dealing with a recruiter. If you're coming out of the service, whether you've been in for 8 years or 20 years, the last recruiter you saw might have been Abel down in San Antonio when you're trying to join the Navy, and now you're dealing with Abel at PAE. There's a much different way that you deal with recruiters. And then the second piece after that, I want to ask you get your take briefly on what it's like to be a recruiter, because I know a lot of people who've been recruiters in the military. That's the kind of career path they might be thinking about taking. But let's first start with what it's like dealing with the actual job seeker. How is it different? How is it the same? So Steve, you want to start? What's it what's it different like for the job seeker there?
Well, I could say from a job seeker perspective, I look at two sides of the house. There's the enterprise level, okay, which on the military side that doesn't change. It's very static on the military side, but on the civilian side, it's dynamic. So from what we're talking about here, from a candidate perspective, um, there's for me there's a lot of similarities. I'm not the kind of a person that sells jobs. I never did sell a job. I always sold features and benefits of the organization that person was uh, signing on to. So, many of us came out of high school, college, looking for that next step, wanted to join the military for different reasons. Many times, when you join the military, you're not doing it for money. You're doing it for other reasons. And I always tried to find what that reason was and then match that with whatever feature or benefit that the military had to offer. Same thing goes for the jobs or the positions that we're sourcing for now, because a lot of the positions that we're sourcing for now side by
All right. Looks like Steve may have a little of a technical
Technical
piece there.
difficulty.
While he figures that out. Abel, what about you?
I would agree with them as far as features and benefits are concerned. As a PAE recruiter, we're not really focusing on the benefits, yeah, but not as much. I mean, people were looking for jobs coming back from a tour of duty and want to continue what they were doing in the military, as opposed to being a neighbor recruiter. That's what I experienced was we never sold the job. It was never, hey, do you want to be an electrician or do you want to be? It was more of, hey, I can see where you're trying to better yourself, so we can get you pointed in this direction to accomplish that goal, as opposed to, hey, you need an electrician spot. I have this, and this is what's needed for that.
Well, they say when you're coming into the service, you come in and you get put in a position because of what you can do. Like the Navy, the Air Force, whatever. They're going to teach you how to do something. But the difference once you're coming out, you at PA, you're looking for what somebody does already. Like they need to be an electrician, for the most
Correct.
part, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So as far as your job as a recruiter, like I said, a lot of people want to get into human resources, and recruiting is one of those things. You did one tour as an enlisted recruiter. Is your job similar? Is it different? How did you get into recruiting? Basically, I guess is the best question. How did you get to where you are?
Like I said, it was something that I decided to do because my job, I'm technical in background. Coming back to the States from overseas, there wasn't too many availability. And a clearance did kind of hinder me because my clearance was expired. So I figured, hey, you know what? Since I can't do what I usually do, let me go ahead and see if I can give some opportunity to other vets.
Yeah, and you recruit for. We're going to talk a little bit about the things that you guys recruit for. We'll let Abel take this, and then we'll jump to Steve after that. What kind of things are you recruiting for, Abel? I think you guys. Is it the case? Are you recruiting for the same kind of things that you did when you were in the Navy? Similar?
I do have a couple of programs that do require the trades, electricians, plumbers, HVAC techs, so on and so forth. And also, I'm also recruiting for security analysts, so people
Hmm.
that have ever had any kind of experience processing or adjudicating clearances.
Okay. What about you, Steve? What kind of programs are on your docket right now?
Very similar. Yeah, directly MOS or MOC, AFSC related. Right now, I'm sourcing for candidates to go over to England and Germany to be radar operators and simulate those ground threats for our air crews.
So while we're talking about some of these, more traditional skill set type pieces, you know, what is it harder or is it easier, do you think, to find some of those? I mean, a lot of times we're like we hear about, cybersecurity people is like the big field right now, but the world still needs wrench turners. Do you guys have a hard time finding these people, or does your job involve more like I have so many applicants, I got to figure out who the best fit is? What's your supply and demand look like for candidates?
Did you want to take that, Abel?
No, you
Either
got
one
it.
of
Go
you.
ahead.
Okay. So finding talent has always been finding the right person for the right position at the right time. So there's a lot of talent out there, okay, but everybody is going to be at a different stage in their career, so the timing might not be right. Right now, we're it's a challenge to get people overseas. So we have a lot of talent that can do the work, but because of the nature of the work, where it's at, that is a bit of a challenge, and especially with current status of COVID and immigration type, issues as far as getting visas and travel and all that. That's been a bit of a challenge. So it's a matter of matching that right talent set to the person that really wants to go overseas and do these types of positions. So, yeah.
And Abel, I know you've got some positions that can be geographically tough too. We've talked about, that's not in the traditional, you know, DC, San Antonio, Tampa, where everybody's cleared. You've got some stuff. What any tips for job seekers when it comes to looking at jobs that are, in I don't want to say weird locations, but in non-traditional locations for clearances?
One thing I tend to tell my candidates is really research where the spots that I have are, because I mean, some are good for families and some aren't. So I'm more of a family guy myself, and if it's not going to fit for my family, I mean, I'm really not going to take that position, and I don't want to put anybody in that financial burden kind of a issue.
Do you ever see people going to a location and then once they get there, they turns out it's not everything they thought it was?
No, I have not experienced that as of
That's
yet.
good. Yeah. I know sometimes that's what we see, that a lot of times that the hiring managers are concerned about that if someone's not from the area and they take a position and it's in a brand new location. What about you, Steve? You got any comments on geographic challenges when someone's looking for a job, for example, and it's not where they're at, maybe because they're looking for something overseas, or maybe they're overseas and the jobs are back in the States?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier as far as the differences between military recruiting and what we do now, is that candidates have a choice. So, when you join the military, you don't know if you're going to get a remote tour to Korea when that pops up. And if I ask somebody, well, geez, this position is, in Korea or, some other place that may be not a good fit for them right now, that's something that I can't change. So that's when we have to put our thinking caps on, I guess, and use that toolbox to overcome something I can't change. And that could be a drawback, but we have to refocus on the bigger picture. And sometimes that bigger picture might be, well, maybe they're trying to get an education, or maybe they're trying to get better pay or something like that. And if that position doesn't fit for them to meet those goals, then hey, we've done our due diligence, and we definitely want to try to keep their information for future, because guess what? I mean, their skills and abilities are desperately needed. It's just that timing segment just wasn't there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we've talked a little bit about the kind of stuff that you guys are looking for, and we know that definitely things can be a challenge. One of the questions that we get, I'm just going to throw this banner up here too, is about sponsorship of security clearances, and some people say, well, I'm coming out of the service, I've got a secret, but the job requires a top secret or TSSCI. Should I apply for that anyway? Should I reach out to somebody? You know, both in your experience with the positions that you guys are dealing with, but maybe also in your just experience in general as a recruiter, what kind of advice or what kind of tips do you have for someone who sees that they have the right skill set but doesn't have the right clearance? Like, how should they attack trying to get that job or make those connections? What do you think, Abel? Let's start with Abel, and then we'll go to Steve.
So I would say be persistent. If you do currently have a clearance, try to keep it fresh and active if you can. We do have a lot of different programs and different customers, I guess you can say, that have different requirements. We can't always say what that is. We try to say, hey, at least a minimum of this. And sometimes they're lenient with upgrading, and sometimes they're not.
Yeah. Steve, you've been at PAE for a little bit time there. Have you guys been able to sponsor clearances for some positions on
Absolutely.
occasion?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, depending on the status, what I've noticed a lot of recently is, and this is a wonderful thing, a lot of veterans are getting out, taking care, getting that the new GI Bill money and going to school and getting that education knocked out, right? Well, sometimes you might lose that clearance. You just get out of the military, you go to school for a couple of years, now you're ready to rock and roll, but now that clearance is out of scope. Well, look at the job description. If the job description says, must be able to be secret qualified, or must be qualified for a secret, definitely apply. Because it could be pretty quick to get that secret back, back in scope for you. And if it says like a TS, or must be able to sponsor for a TS, or must be able to
obtain
a TS, definitely apply, and get that resume uploaded into the system with something related to that secret or previous clearance, secret clearance qualified, right up front, so that the ATS can read it.
So they should go ahead and list, even if they don't have it currently, they can list that they previously held
a secret clearance.
And that could be a beneficial thing on the resume, is what you're saying.
There's time periods that basically if you haven't been sponsored for a clearance, if it's not being employer, let's say you get out of the military, it starts ticking. Even though it's good for 10 years, everybody says, well, it's good for 10 years, whatever. If it's not being sponsored, I don't have the exact timelines right now, but it will go out of scope, and it'll be a little bit different, a little harder getting back. It's not impossible at all, because we do it all the time. But we have to talk with the hiring manager to make sure that their timing works, because the customer might need somebody on station faster than what we can hold the position for. Sometimes, if the job rec is new, if you see it's posted right away, my advice, apply right away. Okay, because that's when they're trying to prime the pump.
See, and I think that's good information to kind of get from you, Steve, there too, is that, when you apply, you can also adjust your expectations. If you don't have what's required, it doesn't mean not to apply at all, but it does mean that you can't just, and sometimes those expectations might be dictated by factors other than just simply like, we don't want to do it. Like you're saying, if the time hack of the requirement, um, impacts that,
Yeah.
that can mess it up. Anything else you want to add about sponsorships or clearances there, Abel?
Nope, I think you said it all.
Yeah, I didn't. I just didn't want to cut you off there, buddy. Something else that was fun. We did a little bit of pre gaming here on Friday. The three of us, and even though Stephen and Abel are both at PAE and they both actually live in Florida, they had never met each other. That's how. I mean, PAE is a really large organization, and some of the reasons that's why they can sponsor things. They've got a lot of great stuff going on at PAE, but when they were talking, they were discussing things about how they can help each other out. So, and then we started to talk a little bit about how if I'm a job seeker and I'm coming out and I talk to Abel, he may not know about Steven's jobs, or he may know just that they exist, but can't really speak to them. Tell me how you guys work together, in a recruiting firm, and also how networks and referrals, being a good person and doing that kind of stuff can help out a job seeker. What do you guys think about that? Go ahead, let's start with Steven.
Yeah, I mean, so just so everybody knows, we have a lot of jobs posted, and if you apply to a position and 100 people apply, sometimes if the recruiter finds somebody and the first person in the list is qualified and they're ready to rock, those other 99 people, they're not going to get the job, and they may not get, they're going to get dispositioned accordingly, right? Now, if you actually are connected to one of us, and you apply for that position, you could always reach out to one of us and say, hey, Steve, I applied for this position. Just wanted to let you know. And I can always reach out to Abel or one of the other many recruiters we have here and say, hey, look, I know this person. It's great. That's called networking, right? If you can now as a veteran team that we're talking to, here, this audience, you know us. Now, I may not have that position, but I could always reach out to the recruiter and say something and say, well, hey, I've been in contact with this person. Check them out. Now, it doesn't guarantee anything, but at least you're networking. And so for Abel, now I know what Abel's looking for. If I get resumes all the time from veterans that may not be aligned to my position, I can send them to all the other recruiters in my team or directly to Abel. And now that, it's important for us as recruiters, even though we're in the same organization, to network and know each other's programs.
So Abel, how many as obviously you guys are connected on these types of things, but like just as an example, how many recs are you currently working on? Just sheer numbers of positions are you responsible for trying to fill right now?
I would say at least one of my contracts I have about 10 to 15. Another one I have probably about 30 plus.
Wow. So you're pushing close to 50 recs that you're responsible for?
Yes.
And of those, how many different hiring managers do they report to? Is it all for one hiring manager, or do you have to deal with lots of other folks in that process as well?
So I'm lucky that I don't have too many programs. I handle 3, so I only have 3 different hiring managers.
So 40 to 50 openings with three up to 3 different bosses that he has to deal with. So that's the kind of thing that keeps him, and that's why he's so busy keeping track of what he's thinking about, that he may not know what Steve's going on. Steve, out of curiosity, what's your rec load and hiring manager load look like?
Yeah, I'm at about the same, and I bounce around a lot too, because sometimes I might need some additional bandwidth, some help on another rec, and I'll jump in there and and get things going, because there's a lot of activity going on right now. Things are like we were talking earlier about the differences between the military and the civilian side, is that it's not that static on our side. Things change all the time. Government requisitions, their needs change, and so we have to be receptive to that change.
Yeah, I think it made me think back to what Abel said. He's looking for wrench turners and also security analysts. Like
Yeah.
two very different things that just get thrown
Yeah.
at you. And that's the other reason I think as a job seeker to connect with recruiters. Because one of the first things that a recruiter is going to do when you get a new rec is you're going to get on LinkedIn or whatever, and you're going to be like, I'm looking for these people. So you want to if you were the security analyst that didn't connect with Abel because he was looking for wrench turners, and all of a sudden he's looking for security analysts, you're kind of missing out. So the more people that you're connected with, the better off you're going to be. Um, so I guess one of the last things before we start, we got about 7 or 8 minutes left on our little chat here. One of the other cool things when we were meeting up with folks, I talked to Steve. Steve had some experience doing some outreach and some working with what he called barriers to employment that he had done in a previous work, where you were focusing on folks who had challenges to getting jobs. And
Mhm.
so and that was your focus through. Was it through the VA that you were doing that, or
That was through the Department of Labor.
Department of
So I worked,
Labor?
yeah, Department of
Yeah,
Labor,
but
and so I worked at CareerSource, and CareerSource has what they call DVOPs, Disabled Veterans Outreach Counselors, and they're there on loan from the Department of Economic Opportunity. So
yeah,
DEO for that state writes the grant, they apply for the grant, they hire us, and then we help veterans that have a barrier to employment to overcome those barriers. It's actually case managed. So we work with
and
it's a goal based system.
and so you were saying there's a lot of that stuff that you did or learned. You've actually taken over. You're still kind of using those skills now. Is that right?
Oh yeah, yeah, every day. I mean, somebody may talk to me. They're a veteran. Maybe they were a E7, E8. They've been working they've been essentially a program manager, right? Managing a program, but maybe they've had trouble conveying that experience in a way that on the civilian side that employers are receptive to. And sometimes all it takes is just one meeting, and we can get that resume going, and then sort of just illustrate the correlation to what they did in the military into how it applies into corporate America.
And even though Stephen, you did that in a kind of formal way. I mean, Abel, being a 20-year guy yourself, and because a lot of stuff you're recruiting for stuff that you did, do you ever get a chance to informally coach some job seekers or help them out as far as the process of putting together resumes, that kind of stuff?
Definitely. I have had a couple resumes come across that they meet the description of the actual job. It's just kind of needs a little bit more of an umph. And I'll talk to them. Say, hey man, this is what we're looking for. Have you done this? Well, make sure that your resume does reflect that. So yes, I have.
Sounds good. Well, before we start to close things out, anything that you guys learned? I mean, you guys have both did time. What do you think that the tips that maybe you wish you would have known, or things that are kind of underappreciated right now for veterans coming out? We'll go with Steve first, and then jump to Abel. So what's your last minute tips for those veterans, or things that you wish you would have known?
From my perspective, and I brought this up prior to getting out for a couple of years, was now I feel that being a senior NCO, you should prepare your people because we prepare them to get in, and we do all these things to get them in and get this world-class training. But I think that part of the senior NCO rating system should be where are your separating personnel going? If they do not have an answer for that, I don't care if they've done 3 years or 25 years, they should be ready to leave. If they're not going to college, if they don't have a retirement, if they don't have a job, then that should be reflective of your rating. Because now the way things are in the military is that we are rated based off of how many of our people are getting promoted and go to college and all that. And that makes the military much stronger. But when we're getting out, my premise was that we should be very aware of what our people are doing on the way out. So helping them, get those certifications and spend that certification money, and worrying about, what are they going to be doing next? And that should be part of our out processing. That's just how I view it.
No, thanks for your thoughts. Abel, what about you? Any tips that you wish you would have known? Things that you wish you could change?
Pretty much TAP class. pay attention. There are recruiters that do come in every once in a while and start early. If he gives you a card, send him an email. You never know what he's going to have.
Yeah. So if anybody that's watching this now or watching it maybe live or you're watching it on a replay later on, if you didn't get your question answered, if you want to talk about something, shoot it to us at customer service at ClearedJobs.net. We do these types of Military Mondays pretty much every month, usually the first Monday of the month. And whether if it's a question for Stephen or if it's a question for Abel, we can get that question to Stephen or Abel. They'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Also, find those guys, Abel Arocha or Stephen Valentine, on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Bob Wheeler. The more connections you make, the better off you're going to be. But yeah, if you've got questions, shoot it over to us. And the other thing I want to just share with everybody is if you've got a CI or a full scope poly clearance and you want to attend a job fair, we've got a job fair coming up on February 10th. It's an in-person job fair. It's going to be in Dulles, Virginia. And we've already got 10 companies signed up, even though it's still over a month away. One of those companies is PAE. So even though Stephen and Abel won't be there, if you've got the CI or the full scope poly, you can go there and talk to PAE folks. And if you want to learn more about PAE before you go, reach out to Stephen or Abel and find out more about the company itself. Because like we learned, even if they don't know each other, they're all on the same team and they got lots of veterans. And that as veterans, we're always there to help each other out. Like I said, I think it's kind of cool. Steve and Abel didn't really know each other till last week, and I get the feeling that they're going to be able to stay connected and do even better things for PAE together.
Absolutely.
So that's all we have. Anything else, guys, before we let them go, or are we just going to say goodbye?
Start early and good luck.
There you go. Start early. Good luck.
That's it.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for everything. ClearedJobs.net. We're signing out. Bye.